guys, time for another exciting episode of The Stash Report from The Stash Project. Today is April Fool's Day 2016, and this was a rather unfortunate series of events called the calendar that has led to us having to do the show on April Fool's Day. I'm actually going to hold the upload for a couple of days, mainly because my wife's got things to do this weekend, including working, and she's got a few things she's going to be doing out socially, some girls' night out stuff, and I'm going to be home with the kids, so I probably won't even have a chance to upload it anyway. However, I want to talk about some brand new kits from Aoshima that you may or may not even have heard of yet. They finally, I don't know if the pictures leaked out as much as they were just distributed out on several toy websites. I haven't seen them really on any modeling websites other than one forum. And they've admitted to them publicly now on their own Facebook page because somebody made reference to them. So I can tell you about them finally. I've known about them for a while, but we can finally discuss them not so much in depth, but just talk about them and name them finally, because it's some kits that I've actually been really excited about and really wanting to tell you guys about. But we have our sort of convention, so to speak, with not trying to make myself sound like a hobby insider, but when you know things about kits that are in development, you're just not allowed to talk about them. And instead of going around and going, "Well, I know something you don't know," I just don't talk to you guys about them at all, and that way. I don't come off with that sort of weird arrogance that a lot of forum dwellers do when they start being like, "Well, I know the guy who built the box art for so-and-so, and he says at some point," stop that. It's just sort of weirdly and also wildly annoying. So, without derailing the show before it even starts, we have May's spot runs out of pretty much everybody. I don't believe there's going to be any more announcements. The only other announcements that may be made other than what I'm about to tell you here will be Tamiya, if they decide to do anything in May, because their list was not updated as of yet. But we have Fujimi's, Aoshima's, B-Max, and the one kit from Hasegawa. But we talked about the Hasegawa kit last week, so we won't bother touching on it again this week. And then we have several kits that are reissued, one brand new kit that has come out at the end of this month. And, of course, we have the brand new Aoshima supercars to talk about. So let's do because I got pictures of the supercars, and we're going to go into those a little more in depth. Let's talk about these kit announcements. So, as we had mentioned probably a month or two ago, we saw the beginnings of this kit coming together for this. Again, all of these are May releases. McLaren MP4 2B from B-Max, Aoshima Cooperative. That's a 1/20th scale F1 car. It's going to represent the 85 Grand Prix of Monaco, and like all of B-Max cars, there's going to be a specific detail upset for this kit. Now, you're thinking, sounds familiar? Yes, they did an MP4 2. As the 84 Grand Prix of Britain, or the British Grand Prix, I guess would probably be the better way of saying that. That also had its own detail upset that's mostly photo etch and like seatbelt fabric and stuff like that. So this one is the 2B. I'm not exactly sure what 2B or not 2B is as far as what different parts are. I'm not, I talk about F1 because I know some of you guys are into F1, but I personally am not, and so, I don't do the research. Sorry. Okay, I'm not really even apologizing. But obviously it's a variant of the 2 because it's not the 3. These things seem to go in generations. We're up to the MP 430 with the McLaren Honda kit that Ebro did. This is a Marlboro-sponsored race car, so more than likely Taboo Graphics or perhaps Auto Color, because they're also owned by B-Max. They're a decal company out of Macau as well. We'll be doing the Marlboro logos that you will need to actually build this kit. It does come with a pretty complete set of decals otherwise, so you really don't need to look for like an entire, decal sheet to replace all of the decals. You just need the Marlboro logos because, unfortunately, tobacco's, just too evil to let your children even see from an adult collectible standpoint, because it's a model kit from Macau distributed by a company from Japan. What are the chances your kids are ever going to see it? Fujimi's May spot runs are going to be the McLaren MP427. This would be the 2012 version of the McLaren. I think it was a Mercedes at this point, for the Australian Grand Prix. The Ferrari 2012, which was the Ferrari 2012 F1 car, both those 1/20th scale, and that's going to be for the Malaysia Grand Prix. What is kind of interesting about that is the fact that the McLaren won the Australian Grand Prix, which was the first race of the season, and then the Ferrari won the Malaysian Grand Prix, which was the second race of the season. So you can effectively, if you pick both those kits up, build the first two winning cars of the 2012 F1 season. And F1 cars are sort of here and there and everywhere, and hit and miss as to what cars get made, what manufacturers are made, licensing, and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting that you can, for probably like $60, not knowing if there's other decals you'll need for that. If there is, we'll tell you. You can grab, you can build the first two winning cars of a season, and even with my plethora, they're off camera, they're a little bit too far this way, but even my plethora of GT3 decals, it's very hard to get a lot of stuff done from any particular race or any particular winning thing. A lot of my GT3 things are specific to teams. I have a lot of Boots and Guignon racing. I have a lot of Mark VDS racing, a lot of Schubert racing, but they're different races. They're different years. I can build race teams worth of cars, but it's very hard for me to build a first, second, third place of a race, or winning the race year to year. It's the decals don't do that. So this, like I said, I think it's just kind of unique that you can actually do that. On the 1/24 scale side of things, they're going to reissue the Ferrari F40 LM. That is the homogenized street car version of the Le Mans race car that they built. That's going to come with window masks for the first time, so that's what's different about it. Keep in mind, Fujimi's F40 is sort of a curbside-ish type of thing. There is a little bit of an engine in it, but it's nothing like the Tamiya kit or even the Revell of Germany kit. They're also going to reissue the Dino 246 GTS. That's the Spider version of the Dino, and the 85 Porsche 911 Turbo. And that is because in 1985, the Porsche 911 Turbo wasn't a real car. Is actually, what do they call that? I just looked this up because we just had this conversation in the chat room the other day. It's like the Street Performance Package or something like that. It's the turbo look, but it's not actually a turbo car, because in 1985, the Porsche 911 Turbo was actually still the Porsche 930, which is the what do they call it? Oh wait, my Porsche kits are directly behind me, but they just released it in the circuit the Circuit Noanami kits from last year. That is available if you want the turbo. If you buy this kit, assuming it's the Enthusiast Series version, it's not gonna be turbocharged because it's the turbo look. It was something they sold here specifically to the United States. It's interesting that Fujimi chose to even make a model of it, because the 930 wasn't available in 84 and 85, or maybe it's 85 and 86, but whatever it is, at the time the turbocharged Porsche is still the 930. Look the same, but not the same, technically not the same car. Now the Dino and the Porsche 911 were both done as Enthusiast Series kits, and they've both been done as in the Real Sports packing. And the Real Sports, of course, are the curbside versions with a third of the parts. Easier to build for sure, but if you're looking for the Enthusiast Series, these may not be those kits. So I cannot go out on a limb and say, well, pre-order it if you want it, unless you're willing to either really willing to cancel your pre-order at the last second. You're going to have to keep your own eyes open on this. I'm not going to make special videos for it, or be willing to. I mean, the kits are only going to be like $17 a piece. Be willing to take them if they're curbside, but until we know more later, I can't say for sure. If those are going to be the curbsides or the full detail, 200-part kits. Because Fujimi sort of got a weird little track record with these now, where they've been blindly reboxing the Enthusiast Series kits into the Circuit Wolf series and some of the Ferraris, like the 288 GTO, into regular boxes. You wouldn't even know they're Enthusiast Series kits, and then the kits that you would think would be Enthusiast Series kits, like the Slant Nose that came out a few months ago, have been the curbside versions. So it is what it is. Know that going in, if you're looking for either one of those things. You can still find the Enthusiast Series of the Porsche 911 Turbo and the 246 GTS Spider for reasonable prices. Now, they're not as reasonable as they would be if Fujimi were to reissue them, but they're still, in the $30 to $40 range, which isn't that terrible for them. How bad do you want them? Over on the Aoshima side of things, for May, right now we just have some spot runs. There haven't been any new kits announced, and the spot runs are the what they call the GRS 202. Now this is going to end up being like the 2010, I believe. Let me look real quick here. No, it would be the 2008. So these would be 2008 to 2010, or 2006 to oh Jesus, I'm stuttering all over. I'm stuttering and muttering full here. 2005, 2008. Well, somewhere it's like a 3-year period. It's like 2006-ish to 2009-ish, I guess would be what it is. Toyota Crown, I guess it'd be Royal Saloons, technically speaking, done as Metropolitan police cars. There's going to be 2 of these kits. Well, they're reissued, so there are 2 of these kits, but they're going to reissue both of them. One is just a patrol car for Tokyo, and the other one is a traffic enforcement car for Tokyo. Both kits are more or less the same, except what light bars they come with. The Tokyo traffic car comes with like a high-riser bar where the light bar sits way up on the roof so that you could see it over traffic. Think if you're on the East Coast and you know your police cars, think of a McDermott light bar, like the NYPD traffic and like Nassau and Suffolk traffic run, where the little arms come up and have blinky halogen spotlight bulbs on them. This is sort of the same thing, except the whole light bar raises up. If you happen to be in Quebec, the Quebec Provincial Police runs light bars that actually rise up in the air on their cars. But both those kits are pre-paints. So if you've ever seen a well, more or less all Japanese police cars, but the Tokyo ones specifically are black and white with a white over black, rather than what we consider a traditional black and white here in the United States, where the doors would be white and the car would be black. The black and white in Japan is sort of a little widow's peak thing on the hood that meets the black that goes around pretty much the belt line of the car, and it's black on the bottom, white on top. So those are pre-painted that way. You get the decal to put on the hood to do the little widow's peak, but otherwise the car itself is already pre-painted. Wow, I popped the mic on that. Sorry, guys. They're already pre-painted black and white. But remember, all pre-painted kits that Aoshima does are pre-painted on the runners, so you have all of the mold lines, all of the attachment points when you cut them off and stuff like that. The body will not have been, desanded. It will not be desanded. Somebody's been using the term deburred around me a lot for things that are cut off sprues, and it's annoying the living bejesus out of me because it's a stupid term. You're not deburring anything. Deburring is a metal issue, not a plastic problem, but whatever. They're going to reissue the Lamborghini Aventador LP704. That's just the regular Lamborghini Aventador kit. They're going to reissue the Daihatsu Copen Active Top. That is the 2008 version of the Daihatsu Copen. It'd be interesting to see if they're going to do this one again as like the sort of full-on kit that they did last year, where it came with like the export steering and interior and the 10th anniversary steering and interior, and decals to build the 10th anniversary or the active top. There was it was not a 3-in-1 since there really wasn't that much difference about it, but you could build the kit 3 different ways. Be interesting to see if they're going to do it that way, or it's going to be just back to just being the active top version. They're going to reissue 2 more of the Liberty Walk kits, and they are the Ken and Mary 4-door, which was the 3rd kit in the series. That's the one that's sort of black and silver tritone, and then the Ken and Mary police version, which is pretty much the same car, just done up as a police car. That was a reissue. It was a new kit, the end of last year, I guess. Well, not the end of this 2015, but the end of 2014. They're going to reissue the Mazda RX-7 FD3S A-Spec Type GTC. They're going to reissue the initial D Toyota Truno A86 Project D. That is the middle grade of the 3 kits, and the initial D Truno A86 Volume 37. That is the 3rd kit that has all of the parts to build anything from a factory stock Truno all the way up to the full-on race car. We've talked about those numerous times in the nearly 2 years we've been doing the show, and it seems like the initial D Trunos get reissued pretty much every 90 days or so. Clearly, everybody's buying them, and they're very, very popular for Aoshima, and so, I don't fault them for reissuing it. And it's one of those kits where if you ever want one and you somehow don't get one, it's your own damn fault, because holy mother, there's just got to be thousands of those kits around all over eBay and all over, any kind of vending sites. I've actually seen them at model car shows a couple times here around the Pittsburgh area, where you're really going to get saturated in the market when you start seeing them show up at, model car shows in the United States, because, let's face the facts, there are some of us that go to model car shows that build import cars, and then there's the 95% of the crowd that's there building muscle cars and street rods and customs, and no fault to those guys. Like I said, I've got plenty of muscle cars and stuff. Don't do the custom stuff, but I got plenty of muscle cars, and I've got a few hot rods, or things that could be hot rods if I wanted to turn them into, but it's not my primary, well, I guess it is. It's secondary. I think I've actually got a little more foreign kits now, especially with the eruption of the race car addiction than I do U.S. spec cars. But I still have a interest in just everything automotive. But going to shows and trying to find old Japanese model kits is sort of an impossibility. It's one of those things you really don't see. There's one vendor here locally that goes to a bunch of shows, and he carries a lot of Japanese kits, not so much older stuff, but current stuff. And then, you'll find guys that have stuff in their collections that they'll sell, but, when you start seeing kits at model shows that are kind of standardized, like the initial Trunos, you're like, yeah, okay, they're everywhere. And so, like I said, if you don't get one, it's your own fault. Again, we always recommend the Volume 37 version because it literally, as I said, comes with every part that any of the Trunos have ever had, and it does have the engine insert in it. All the initial D kits do, but the Volume 37 one has like 2 different exhaust styles and 3 different intake styles, or carburetor styles, I guess I should say. It's got racing seats and roll caging and the factory stock interior, so you could pretty much build it any way you want to. You're just sort of limited to the fact that all the Trunos from the initial D series come with Watanabes, because that's what the car ran throughout the series. Now, we can actually go on a little bit here and talk about the brand new supercars from Aoshima. We've been sitting here swinging in the wind, so to speak, dying to talk to you guys about this stuff, and I'm sort of looking at how they've loaded into the preview viewer here before I talk about them to you guys, so that I run the pictures in the right order. There are going to be a grand total of 4 kits that are going to come out over the next probably 18 months. And that's, again, generosity, how far any of these are along, and how close the first ones here that are going to be for the summer and the fall come to, actually coming out on time. Because if they start running late, sort of the way the Sesto did, where it came out almost 4 months after it was supposed to, it'll just keep pushing everything back behind it. Let me think. How to talk about these. You got 4 kits altogether, like I said, and 3 of them are actually 3 of them are brand new toolings. One of the fourth, whoops, I'm going the wrong way. 3 of them are brand new tooling, and the 4th kit is a sub tooling to one of the brand new tooling. So there's going to be 3 street cars and a race car out of this. And I guess I only have one picture of it here. So the first kit, Aoshima was going to do 4 kits. The first kit that's going to be coming out is tentatively scheduled for July. This will officially get announced here with like more than what you're going to see here, probably in the next couple of weeks. For sure, it'll be announced at the Shizuoka Hobby Show in May, in about a month, and that is going to be the Lamborghini Huracan. This obviously is just the body of it, so don't freak out about the fact that like the bottom half of the door or anything like that is missing. This will be like I said, the first kit that's going to come out for July. So if this comes out on time, then the next one is a better chance it's going to come out on time, blah, 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 and so on down the line. Very, very excited for this one. I know a lot of people have been, really, really wanting this kit as far as, what they really need to do is make a Huracan. That's the new car. For everybody who knows about Aoshima's plans, because part of these plans were actually accidentally leaked not this past Toy Fair, but last Toy Fair, is the fact that there's a Lamborghini Diablo GT coming. The Lamborghini Diablo GT sort of got shoved off to the wayside a little bit by Lamborghini itself, because they wanted this kit done first, which makes sense because this is the brand new car. It's not, the Lamborghini Diablo GT, while a fine piece of Lamborghini, is also a pretty old car at this point. It's, that was run back in the 90s, so, it's almost 20 years old. I'm pretty sure they would rather have the new thing out. So what you're looking at here, again, is most of these are going to be rapid prototypes. So again, don't be too, up in arms about necessarily total shapes and what the texture of it looks like and stuff like that. But this is going to be sort of a more modest, I should say, Lamborghini kit in the sort of the vein the Sesto Elemento is. The doors don't open, obviously, especially if you look at this way the cockpit is constructed on this kit. The side door panels are already on here, as opposed to being attached to the doors themselves, so to speak. So it's going to be full detail kit. You're going to have a full engine, and all that good stuff. It doesn't necessarily look like it fits into a tub per se, but at this point, there aren't any other versions of the Aventador other than the Aventador. I know there's some coming up, but they're not out yet. As far as the 1-1 car goes, not the model. And this is what just looks like, sort of like I've seen a lot of the pictures of the Sesto's parts now because the kit came out this week, and it sort of looks like it's the same sort of thing where it's a very, very detailed kit without being incredibly complicated to put together. I like it. I'm all for it. I don't know. We'll see how popular it is as the word spreads about it. But I know that a lot of people were really, really, really wanting a Sesto. More than anything, or wanting the Hurricane more than anything else. A lot of the people were pissed off, frankly, that they decided to do the Sesto at all rather than doing the Hurricane. But of course, the Hurricane has just been in planning, and the Sesto was further along. The Sesto, the real Hurricane only started being sold towards the middle of last year anyway. So it's not like it's that old a car. There was much more lag between the introduction and production of the Aventador than there was the actual kit, because the Aventador was already on the Roadster before they got around to making the original kit, and then the 50th Anniversario came out around the time that they started making the Roadster, and they've always sort of been a little bit behind on that. I really wish they would make the Super Veloce for the Aventador and make the series, but it is what it is. Now the second kit that's coming out in the fall, and that is just sort of the way it's being framed, because of course, if they don't get the Hurricane out on time, then everything else sort of just starts sliding backwards. So fall, third quarter-ish, because this one has been in planning for quite a long time, and right now I'm looking up, trying to real quick in the background here, trying to figure out how to pronounce it, and it doesn't say. That's fantastic, but because it's maybe. I know, you guys are looking at the screen going, is he going to talk about something else? He's just sort of stuttering all over it. Okay, now I've got a pronunciation of it. These Italian names, what are you going to do? And this one is, like I said, something they've been working on for a while. This is kind of a really, really neat kit because of the fact that Shazam, you guys may not even recognize it, when they started talking about doing development of this car, there was only one of them in Japan. They literally measured the only one in existence, so to speak. I believe there's now a handful of them in Japan. But as it stands, this, guys, is the Pagani Huayra. At least that's the way you pronounce it in Italian. I know it's spelled like it's Huayra, but it's the actual Italian pronunciation of it is Huayra. And it is like Greek for the wind or something like that. I don't know. There was a definition of it on there. But this is the Top Gear. Loved this car. Was their hypercar of the year in 2012. So, the Pagani is a little bit of an older kit, a little bit of an older car, so to speak. But it's still currently in production. So this one is going to be done as sort of a full blast kit, sort of the way the McLaren Longtail GTR race car kit is. This is going to be a full detail kit, as you're seeing here. You get a full engine and all this sort of stuff. But when you get to the cockpit area here, you notice that the doors, the door cards, as Elliot would like to say from ELP modeling, but the door panels are not attached. And if you look at how that sort of the top of that is constructed, you clearly see where you're going to get a piece to put over sort of the top that'll hold the door hinges on. So this, even though the rapid prototype isn't showing it here, is going to have separate doors. You're going to get the gull wing doors that the Pagani has. This has got to be sort of mind blowing to anybody who wasn't paying attention. pictures of this accidentally got leaked this year. Aoshima really clamped down on the fact that they leaked the pictures. Some people got really severely slapped around, so to speak, as far as losing pretty much their access into behind the scenes for releasing it. Some people who thought they were in with Aoshima better than they actually were, and now they aren't in with anybody because they're going to get sort of blacklisted out of things. There is a roadster version of the Pagani Warrior, and it'll be interesting to see, if they actually make that as well. That is, a car that was just released to the public at the Geneva Auto Show this year. Let's see how well this sells first, I guess. I would say that if you are into supercars and you like the quality that Aoshima does with their cars, pretty much the best thing you can do is buy one of these kits if you have any kind of interest in a Pagani Warrior in the first place, because this is sort of a step out onto a limb, so to speak. The Huracan, people are going to buy it. It's a Lamborghini. It's got that brand recognition. It's, a continuation of a series. You have the Countach, you have the Aventadors, you have the Sesto. It's just an expansion of the ever-continuing Lamborghini series at Aoshima. The Pagani is sort of its own little thing, other than maybe making the roadster version of it. What are you going to do with it? It's sort of a one-shot tooling. There isn't a lot else to do with it at the moment, as far as other variations of the car is concerned. There is sort of there's there's a couple of special editions that they could possibly do. There's sort of a higher performance version that was also introduced to Geneva this year, and the Roadster, but it's a leap off the safety, so to speak, of Aoshima's traditional tooling pattern, where you want to make something that has multiple versions. Excuse me, guys. Now, the third kit, and this one's supposed to be out in the fall towards Christmas, is the Lamborghini Diablo GT. The Lamborghini Diablo GT was the last car that came out of the Diablo stables before they switched over to the Gallardo, I guess. Or was it the Murcielago? I can never keep track of my Lamborghinis as far as the models and the makes there. In the 90s and 2000s, but the Lamborghini Diablo GT was again was the last of the Diablos and was the most powerful of the Diablos as well. Was sort of a homogenization, sort of wasn't necessarily planned to be that way. They weren't really raced, so to speak. No, Murcielago was after the Diablo. All right, I knew the Gallardo was later than that, but I'll pull up my reference material here. They only made 80 of them, and you pretty much got a lot of carbon fiber going on in this thing as well. So it'll be interesting to see this kit. This is, as far as I know, going to be a full detail kit. It's going to have an engine and all that stuff. Right now, they're not showing us any kind of development beyond just the rapid prototype of the body and the wheels and that sort of thing. I would not expect this to, in any way, shape, or form, be a curbside. The whole point of the supercar series are to make what are sort of the equivalent of the Tamiya black box quote unquote kits, where they are full detail and very, very engineered to have a lot more parts and a lot more. They're not the run of the mill curbside. They're designed to be a elite kit, if you will, a sort of a pinnacle kit, in the sense of what they are and how much more engineering and detail they have in them. This is not your run of the mill Nissan 4-door kit that's going to be a VIP car. This is a hyper sports car, and the licensing costs a lot of money, and Lamborghini is not going to let them just put out some junk kit. So I like this idea, I especially because I really want there to be a full detail Aoshima Lamborghini Diablo. There's not that much that needs to really be done to this body they'll have to cut another body for it, obviously, but there's not really that much that needs to be done to it to just make a regular Lamborghini out of it. As far as just a regular street Diablo, I still like to see regular street Murcielagios as well, other than just the Super Veloce, because the Fujimi kits exist, but Fujimi's Diablo is really, compared to any Aoshima supercar kit, no matter which one it is really crap. And then, they make a Gallardo, they make Fujimi, I should say, makes a Gallardo. Fujimi also makes a regular Murcielagio. They never did the Super Veloce, and they never did a Diablo GT, which is why that's where Aoshima is starting with their kit series. But I would, just love to see and love to have better model kits than the Fujimi stuff. Now, you said there's 3 brand new tools right there. Now, the sub tool to this is this. This is what? That's just the same thing. Wait, that's a streetcar. This Shisaha, with a little more ducting and a bigger wing out back, is the Lamborghini Diablo GTR. Now, this was a race car, full-bred race car. Everything is out of it. It's got a race interior. It's race ready. Lamborghini ran their own series for these cars, actually. What are they called? It was like the Diablo GTR Cup or something like that. I'm trying to look, and I can't find it all of a sudden here in my notes. Where did it go? The Lamborghini Super Trophy. And then that was for the SVR, which came out a little bit before that. And then the GTR ran for the Lamborghini Super Trophy, or the GTR Super Trophy. This, of course, will be a full detail kit as well, because, you don't, it's just Aoshima. I don't think Aoshima knows how to make a curbside race car, per se, other than maybe the drift cars. I don't know if the doors are going to open on the Diablos or not for sure. As of yet, there's been a little hemming and hawing about what they were going to do with that, because the Murcielago doors obviously open on the race car, and then the McLaren F1 GTR long-tail doors open as well. So, doors open, closed. It's hard to tell at this point. But this is probably one of the most desirable Lamborghini Diablo race cars that was ever done. It's because they only did a couple of them. In real life, they only made 40 of those GTRs, and then they made like another 40 or so chassis to go underneath, creating new ones should they ever be wrecked. The cars were fairly decently, running in the sense that they won the Australian Nation Cup Championship 2 years in a row in the early 2000s. And, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I would expect that maybe the Australian Nations Cup version is the one that they will make a kit of, although Paul Stokel's car had the number 666 when it ran in the series, so who knows, maybe they'll consider that to be too evil to allow around your children. And somebody else will do those decals, obviously. With 40 of them being run, again, it's another kit that there's a plethora of decal opportunities out there for various enterprising companies to make, and should be interesting. And that one is set for the first half of 2017, and it really is just that wide open at this point, because again, you got to get those other 3 kits out for it. Now, on to what came out this week. It's a little mixed bag of reissues and modified reissues and brand new tooling. So let's start with the just straight reissues. That'll be easier. Hasegawa has a few things. First up is the Lancia 037 rally car, done as the 1983 Monte Carlo rally winner. Martini livery there. Just a reissue of the existing Martini existing Lancia 037 that's been done, reissued several times, probably 3 or 4 of these that Hasegawa's reissued in the last 8 or 9 months. They also reissued another decal version of the Lancia Stratos. This one done for the 1978 San Remo Rally. It's the winning car there, and a little Pirelli sponsorship going on there. Also, the factory Hasegawa photo etch for the Lancia 037 is back out finally. Gives you some brake detail and the mesh for the rear end, because if you've ever seen a real Lancia 037, the back end of it is pretty much a great big mesh area, sort of like the way the F40 Ferrari is. And then a long-anticipated reissue that has been, was actually supposed to come out in December and just now got reissued, is the Toyota Celica 1600 GT, quote-unquote, race configuration version. Now, Hasegawa did make a racing version for the, I think, the 1971 Grand Prix of Japan. This is a racing configuration in quotes. They're putting it in quotes, not even me. So this is a street car version. You're going to get like the new set of wheels that you see in the picture here. Those are obviously not Watanabe's. Well, this is a reissue, so they're not a new set of wheels. But compared to the street car Celicas that they've done, you get a different set of wheels here. Of course, you can get the over fenders and all the racing paraphernalia. Now, you do get the roll cage, but it's not part of the instructions. You also still get the left-hand drive wipers and interior, although those are not mentioned in the instructions. They're still carried in the kit, and you still get the regular Watanabe tires. Not mentioned anywhere in the kit, but they're still in the kit itself. One straight-up reissue from Aoshima from the month of March, and that was this. This is the 2012 Crown Athlete 20-inch custom wheel version. So this is the one with the bigger VIP-style wheels. It's pretty much a factory stock kit otherwise, other than having the great big wheels in it, but that's just more or less a restock. Now, also from Aoshima, and these are modified reissues. This is the Initial D FD3S RX7. This is, of course, let me see if I can find my notes here. I should recognize this guy's name by now, but it's one of those things where I always can never remember it. Takahashi Ryosuke. They, of course, you know that they have a kit for him that just sort of floats in and out of reissues all the time. They just reissued it in February. This is the modified race battle version. You get it's different wheels. I don't necessarily think they're new because they aren't tagged in the kit as having like 2016, 2015 dates on them as far as when they were made, but they're not the traditional RX-7 wheels. There's a new hood. There's a new front bumper. There's a new rear wing. There's a bunch of little exterior parts, ground effects and stuff like that. This does come with an engine insert. It is half of an engine, quite literally. It is only right-hand drive, so you can only build it in the Japanese driving configuration, but I think the primary market for this kit, it's going to be fans of Initial D anyway, so not so much looking to, I'm going to build a U.S. spec RX-7 out of it, because you're not, but there are probably about, I want to say, maybe 12 or 13 new pieces here. It's obviously got like clear headlight covers rather than having the flip-up headlights that a normal RX-7 does, and this is the legitimate box art. They obviously want you to buy them in pairs so that you can have them both. This is the famous Grim Reaper GTR, is literally what it's known as. This gets new wheels. They're newly tooled wheels, and there are the car itself, the real car, it's a comic strip, but the real car, quote-unquote, uses two different sets of wheels, so you're not getting like a matching set of wheels here. Know that going in, so because I know somebody's going to immediately go buy it and then start complaining about the fact that the wheels don't match. People have been doing that with the B-Max Civic, because the B-Max Civic has one set of molded in white wheels and one set of chrome wheels. Because there's a point to that. This is the same sort of thing. The front wheels and the back wheels don't match, but they are brand new tools. You get a new rear wing. There's a couple other pieces here. This one has, I want to say, 7 or 8 new pieces. It's less pieces than the existing RX-7 needed to convert it over. The B&R 32 GTR that Aoshima does here, this is not that great a kit, to be perfectly honest with you. It is an old motorized chassis kit. What engraving there is pretty shallow and pretty crappy. There is an engine insert included here for the RB26 DET, but it's the same one that comes in any other kit that you would get that engine with. It's half an engine. You literally are losing your like alternator at half mast. Is only half of a pulley assembly, and everything is only half of it, because this being a curbside, old school motorized curbside, there's you're not seeing all the way through the engine bay. You're just sort of building into the engine bay itself, much like you do with the Tamiya R35 GTR, ironically enough. But the kit, the body's not that bad. Basically, this is just the Nismo body kit for the GTR, and that's already something that Aoshima had done back in like 2009 or so. So that's not necessarily new. Like I said, it's very minor differences here. I think it has different tail lights than a stock GTR. It has different headlights that are the headlights itself inside the bezel are square rather than round. So there's a few details that make it correct to the comic book series, but it's not going to be something that you're really, really going to notice unless you're really, really into Initial D itself. And lastly, as we go into almost a 40-minute weekly episode here, is the brand new kit from Aoshima. This is the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento, the sixth element. Called that because the whole car is made out of a interesting carbon fiber resin weave. That's why it's got the color that it does. There's no actual paint on the car. It is the I think it's a DuPont, or it might be a PPG thing, that it's woven, so to speak, into the carbon fiber resin. They're little crystals, and they catch the sunlight, and that's why the car sometimes looks black, sometimes looks silver, sometimes looks flat gray. There's no actual paint on the car. This kit is kind of cool in the sense that they tried to make it a little more expansive than you would just expect it originally. You can build this car either as the prototype of the car, or you can build it as one of the 20 production versions. The differences there are going to be there's a different steering wheel, there are different wheels, there are different brakes. The taillights are either clear or they're red, depending on which version you build. This is a full detail kit. It has a complete standalone engine. It's not like the Countach or the Aventador, like we talked about before, where you're building sort of a bottomless engine into a tub. This is a full engine. The front and rear ends come off, so you can display the entire engine and rear end compartment as one unit, without the wing on, or without the entire back bodywork on, and the same thing for the front. Decals are kind of minimal in this. They basically include the red octagon parts, octagon parts for the back window, the engine cover. If you've ever noticed, if you look at a real one of these things, it has little red octagon, painted octagon little portholes, and they've given you decals to reproduce that, and that's pretty much it. This kit is very, 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 very detailed without being overly complicated. The doors don't open, so the interior builds like a regular interior. You don't have to worry about trying to get the doors to match or anything else like that. The construction is simplified without being like monogram 1980 simplified, so it's not necessarily a 150-part kit the way the Longtail GTR or the Murcielago are. I think it made a really, really nice compromise with it as far as everything I've ever seen of it. I have one. It's still in Japan, so we'll have to wait for it for a couple more weeks. And then they also did a factory detail-up part set. You're also getting a rash of photo etch for it. You also get a seatbelt set for the seats, and then there's some metal transfers for the logos and stuff like that. This does sort of present an interesting quandary is exactly how you're going to finish this kit in the sense of the exterior. There's no paint that's ever going to replicate exactly what this car looks like in real life. Even if someone did an entire carbon fiber template set for the outside of the car, which would just be a nightmare considering how many knife edges this car has to try to lay down anything resembling flat, it would still not look right. It would still just be decals over plastic because, again, it's just not going to catch the way that this thing changes colors in real, outside light. I've seen one now painted orange, or sort of maybe it's a reddish orange. And you know what? There were 20 of these things made. They were $1 million plus when these things were made. Let me pull up real quick while we're sitting here thinking about it what this car cost new, if I can get it to come up without being a whole. Oops, I look at it through a different thing. But like I say, I want to say this car was like $1.5 million new, something like that. Let's see. Survey says price is going to be. No, I don't know. Well, maybe there isn't a price. That'd be great. $2.2 to $2.9 million. Wow, I was undervaluing my Sesto Elemento by nearly $1 million. So $2 to $3 million for these things. You can get it painted whatever color you want it to if you didn't really care for that exterior. Or you could just sort of paint it as sort of a flat, I don't know, Imperial Japanese battleship gray, because that sort of looks like what it, the color. But like I said, there's just no no real way to replicate that exterior because of the way the way it is. But I think it's a very, very cool kit. You get the you get a V10 engine out of a Gallardo, so this is really one of the rare kits that Aoshima has made where you could really swap the engine into something else if you really, really wanted to. And maybe you do. Maybe you're not into the Sesto Elemento, but you're looking for a $30 Lamborghini engine. Yeah, it's up to you, I guess. Anyway, guys, I believe that is actually it. Ran a little long, but we want to talk about those new supercars from Lamborghini. Well, three of them are from Aoshima of Lamborghinis and the Pagani. So that will, how to spend your budget pretty much for the next 18 months or so. Or not even 18 months, the next 12 months or so, as far as your Aoshima wallet. Just go ahead and crack it open. There's going to be detail upsets for probably at least 3 of those kits, and 3 of them are going to need carbon fiber on a lot of it, so be prepared to do some Studio 27 shopping along the way. I really hope that Studio 27 does a decal set for the Sesto, not so much the outside, but the rest of the car. Because if you're going to be taking the front clip and the back clip off to display it, there is a lot of missing carbon fiber there if somebody doesn't make all the carbon fiber decals for it. So hopefully we'll get some of those, and we'll let you know when we know if that's something like that is going to occur. And until we talk to you next week, we'll see you guys on the other side.